Master Splinter often had his hands full when it comes to bedtime. Michelangelo wouldn't stop jumping. Donatello put up quite the fight when it comes to giving up his ideas. He didn't want to forget a single thing. And Leonardo spent so long reading his stories that he often wouldn't give up until he had finished the chapter. Raphael was possibly the easiest, as he exerted so much of his energy on the heavy bags, and his brothers he'd be exhausted. And yet, even he didn't feel it safe yet to close his eyes. The only way to satisfy them was a bedtime story. But what could he tell them? Most of the stories he would tell Leonardo would have already read on his own. He tried to get ahead, and though he liked it, it made stories difficult, as there were only so many stories beyond the books he knew. Telling Leonardo a story he already knew would lead him to either interrupting or getting bored. Many tales of Master Yoshi were too mature for the young minds. He had to make up something. "Dad, why do we have shells?" It was a strange question for his brightest son, but it lent the perfect opportunity, as it piqued all of his sons' interest. They quickly gathered for an answer, and Splinter was more pleased to give them one. With Donatello more eager to hear, seated on his lap, and the rest seated all around him, all that was left was to find a place to begin. Well, you see, it happened like this. Long ago, on the peak of the great mountain, there lived 4 angels who guarded the hidden city, each with their own ability that protected the city and helped the city thrive. The 4 of the angels was an angel of light with 3 pairs of wings to reach every edge of the city faster than the others. His radiant qualities brought them joy and serenity upon the city in the most troublesome of times. Unlike his brothers, he often shielded from responsibility, and so long as the city was safe, it wasn't a problem. The people enjoyed his company as much as he enjoyed theirs, and with the help, the people were always full of hope and cheer. The second of the 4 angels was an angel of science. He had only 1 pair of wings, but he rarely used them. He joined with the great mind of the cities to build and expand its great walls. With his abilities, the city flourished like no other before it. With grand towers and glittering lights, he helped the crops grow tall and kept the harvests plentiful. All in the city were grateful for his gifts. The next of the 4 angels had a rage like no other. He alone made up the army that protected the city, so that no father or child would be lost in battle. The city was hidden, mind you, so villains rarely showed their faces, but this angel with wings of 2 pairs was far stronger than any who had come to face him. Daily he was showered with gifts for his fight, though if he were ever in true danger, his brothers would come to his aid at once. The last of the angels had 1 pair of wings that were far larger than the others. To the people he was a mystery, though his presence was common as the day. He was often seen doing his rounds from wall to wall, ensuring the city was protected. Though the people barely knew it, he was their guardian, and when he spoke, everyone listened. The angels were special, for no others had wings to their names. Since their descent upon the great city, they had grown apart, and the eldest of the 4 became worried. No longer were the others attending to their duties at their walls. Each of the 4 had 1 wall to protect: south, north, east, and west. At first, the eldest tried to balance the 4 walls, but his brother's neglect only became more frequent. When he consulted his warrior brother and tried to get him to return to defending the wall, his brother did not see the reason. "I'm sorry for not defending my wall, but I spent my days training to fight any who may challenge the walls," he told his brother, who saw this as reasonable and moved to the next brother. The angel of process was working hard, and when his brother comforted him, he too had an excuse. I'm sorry for not defending my wall, but if I work hard enough, we will no longer need to defend the walls, for they will be too high to climb and break through. He told his brother, who saw this only reasonable, and moved to the next. The youngest and happiest of the four was playing with the people and celebrating the new year. The eldest knew he wouldn't be willing to do his duties, but he figured he might be able to hear why. I'm sorry for not defending my wall, he began like the others, but if the people were ever to become upsetting being confined with these walls, then what use would defending the walls be? The eldest sighed and went back to defending the walls, for that too seemed with reason. So long as my brothers are working to better the city, I will work to keep it safe. For days he gutted the walls without rest, and it eventually caught up with him, for on the third day, defending the western wall, he fell beyond its boundaries to the hard earth below. The youngest watched in fear and gathered his brothers to save them. By the time they arrived with his aid, it was too late. His wings were broken, and he couldn't fly back to the city. His brothers tried to carry him, but the warrior was only able to carry 5 feet off the ground, but that wouldn't be enough. The brothers agreed that if their brother could not fly, then neither would they. Though they thought the city was able to take care of itself now. With the final spell, the great hidden city was kept hidden from the world forever, and the 4 angels would never be able to return. Now, on the great mountain, the cold protected their wings from harm. But at the mountain's base, since they rarely used their wings over time, they collided into and turned into shells. And together they faced the world. Raphael and Leonardo were only asleep. Once Splinter laid Mikey beside them, he too drifted off. Donatello, however, many yawns he may produce, was wide-eyed with questions. Sensei, did they ever get to use their wings again? He pulled on Splinter's robes gently to get his attention, and Splinter picked him up and placed him beside his brothers. Well, no, over time more and more turtles were born, and all of them bore shells instead of wings. And that is why you have shells, my son. They were too old enough to climb out of the sewers, so they didn't need to know the truth yet. Don hugged him close before laying by his brothers, and letting his sensei tuck them in. Someday we'll fly again, Dad. I promise. He yawned once more while sleep overcome him. Splinter smiled. He'd like to see that. He curled around his sons happily and fell into sleep. Donnie, are you sure those things are safe? Leo double-checked his seatbelts. 100%. Well, unless of course we get blasted out of the sky. Don spoke to his brother over the intercom. Cool! This is gonna be awesome! But did you upgrade the jets with super turbo action like I requested? Of course, Mikey. But don't use it, and remember, we have to stay over the farm. Too close to the city, they'll sound the alarms. Yeah, terrace attacks, and all that we got. Done. Let's take these babies for a test run. Raph was certainly not known for his patience. All right, guys, start 'em up whenever you're ready. Don smirked and tucked a picture of them all with Splinter into the dashboard and turned off the intercom for a second, watching his brothers take off. I hope you can see us, Sensei. Wherever you are, I promise now that we have our wings, we'll search the world until we can bring you home. He checked his helmet and belts, then took off.